Today on the Freddy O Show, Lee Chambers. He wants to help you develop a resilient mindset and finally take that jump to greatness. His story is so inspiring, fam, and it's time to dig deep. Are you ready? Let's go.
Thank you for listening to the Freddy O Show, a podcast devoted to you, the listener, your purpose, your mindset, and your marketing efforts, designed to help you go to that next level. Now here's your host, Freddy O.
Welcome to episode number 9 of the Freddy O Show. I wanted to thank you so much for tuning in. Yes, you. It's always a pleasure to have you aboard, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. A friendly reminder that you can access all podcast show notes from today's episode at winwithfred.com. Also, the Freddy O Show is available on these other fine apps: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, Deezer, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Castro, and Castbox. I truly appreciate your support, guys. It means the world to me. So, episode number 9 is about to take off, and today's guest has a story of perseverance, struggle, and honestly, uncertainty. So let's dive in, fam. Super excited to bring Lee Chambers on board today. Lee, welcome to the Freddy O Show.
Thank you, Freddy, for having me on today.
So, Lee, we are going to dive right in. Tell us who Lee Chambers is.
So, Lee Chambers is many things, but at the moment, I'm an environmental psychologist, wellbeing consultant, and founder of Essentialise Workplace Wellbeing.
Okay, and as far as who you are as a person in general, what have you, any big, life-altering things you went through in life in general?
Yeah, so to unpack it from the start, I grew up in the north of England, over here across the pond, and I had a good childhood. Both my parents are blue-collar workers. You know, they worked hard, instilled that work ethic. And we always had food on the table, a roof over our heads, and they kind of realised that when I was quite young, I was gifted, I was quite intelligent, so I was getting good grades at school, and they were like, get yourself to university, you'd be the first one in the family to go, you'd set the path for, future generations to be able to go and do education as well if they wanted to. So I kind of worked hard for that, got to university and, enjoyed the freedom and the autonomy at first. But I started to struggle in the middle, all the years of not really trying very hard, started to catch up a little bit in terms of my academic performance. But more to the point, I wasn't really prepared to make that adolescent to adult transition. I was still quite young. I'd not really had many failures before that point. So I struggled to express myself authentically, and I realised actually what I was doing maybe wasn't that passionate about it. A lot of things came about where I actually started to avoid and isolate myself a bit. So I ended up going home and then going back to uni again at a later point in time and finishing off. I've always had a passion for data and statistics and a passion for helping people. So I was like, after finishing university, I was like, what do I want to do? Thinking, right, so I like figures, I like stats, I like helping people. I'll go and be a financial advisor. Problem is, graduated in 2007. Not a good time to go and find a graduate job in finance, which I did, and then spent 6 months grafting, working really hard to put my head above the water to show that I was one to keep, not one to get rid of. And middle 2008 hits, and suddenly all the people above me are packing the desks up, and I get pulled into the office, and my boss is like, yeah, I don't even know if my job's safe, but they've taken away the funding for your training. And I'm like, oh, man, that ain't fair. But then a few weeks later, I got pulled in again by my boss and said, look, I'm getting made redundant, and so are you. So both in the same boat here, buddy. But good luck to you. You're a good lad. So I moved back home. I'm like, what do I do in my life? Literally, I've designed this path, and it's all been taken away in less than a year. And I sat there and I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to have to build something that I can't be made redundant from. If I build my own business, I can't fire myself. And if I sign up for my own qualifications and pay for them, I'm going to go and do them, because there isn't going to be anyone telling me, oh, they've been defunded, because I pay for it.
Yeah.
So I took that and I rolled with it. I set up a video game business. I went back working as well, thinking that I needed to really dig a bit deeper into different industries to really get a feeling of what I was going to do in the long term. For the video game business, it really took off. It was 6 figures within a year, doubled in revenue in the second year, and I suddenly found myself in quite a handsome financial position when I bought my first house, and working and running a business, and started doing qualifications in human performance nutrition to add to my degree. And things were going quite well. Third year, revenue doubled again, and all of a sudden I'm wondering, whoa, this is the life, right? Met my wife, had my son, and we were cruising around the Caribbean, holidaying in Florida. It was great, and we bought our first house together, a big family house. Society was looking at us thinking, hey, they're doing all right. And then in 2014, overnight, course of 5 days, I went from, being me, independent, mobile, doing whatever I wanted, when I wanted, to being stuck in a hospital bed. My immune system had attacked my joints, left me unable to walk, but really left me unable to do the simple things. Like, I couldn't even go to the toilet by myself. And I was like, whoa.
Wait, so this was your immune system?
Yeah, so it attacked the connective tissue in my joints. So if you can imagine, all of a sudden, over the course of a few days, my knees suddenly looked like footballs. It was agony. And it affected me.
That's gotta be scary too.
Oh, but I was in shock at first, Freddy. I was like, man, I don't know what's happening. And it took those 5 days. It happened to my wrist first. And I thought, I must have banged it, or I must have just been on the computer too much this week. And then it happened to my knee. And then I knew I was in trouble then. But, you're a young man. I was 29. So I was like, you know what? I'll go to the doctors, get some medication. It'll be fine. I'm bulletproof. I'll be right. Yeah. A few days later, I ended up in hospital, completely and utterly not fine in so many ways. And I was in shock. My wife was 6 months pregnant with my daughter. My son was 18 months old. It was challenging. My son was looking at me with his big eyes like, Daddy, why can't you get up and play? And my wife's coming after work to help me shower, to help me feed myself. As a young man.
That's crazy.
It was hard to take at the time.
That's going from one extreme to the other. Like being on top of the world and then boom, you're in a hospital bed, you can't move. You said that your knees were blowing up, right? They were like swelling?
Yeah, so swelling. So when I got to hospital, they started trying to control it, and they drained so much fluid off my knees. It filled up 2 beakers worth of fluid. It wasn't pleasant. Not at all.
Well, guess what? You're talking to me right now, so that's a great thing.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously you overcame that. So before we go over how you overcame that and where you are right now in life, and first of all, I think a lot of people would be, I could only imagine being tested like that in life in general, when out of nowhere, 5 days, a 5-day span goes by and you slowly but surely deteriorate until where you came and walk, you're in the hospital bed. And did they know what was wrong right away?
No, so they tested me a lot, but fairly early on, they'd realised that my immune system was attacking something. They just started to try and find out exactly what it was attacking. And what they got to a point where they realised that no matter how it's attacking, all the treatments are the same. So we're going to stop putting needles in you and stop testing you for all these things and just try to treat you as effectively as we can. And obviously then I was looking more towards, after a month in hospital, they finally discharged me, and I went into walking rehab and started the process of relearning to walk again through that and intensive physio and hydrotherapy. And no doubt it was a really challenging time. My daughter was then born, and I couldn't do a lot of things, so I had to adapt a lot of my house so I could do things, and I could hold my weight with my hands and my arms. And So it started installing handles and things like that. But I went through rehab and gradually got better and better. And I was determined that I was going to be running around the garden with my children. I saw my daughter there, just born, and said, in a few months, she's going to be trying to walk and I'm going to be trying to walk with her. So let's go on this journey together. And I really anchored into that on those mornings when I was in agony. I was in pain. I was stiff. I didn't want to do my stretches, my exercises. But I decided it wasn't going to be how I felt. It was going to be who I was going to become. And I had that mission. I was going to attack this disease as much as it was attacking me. I was going to take 100% ownership of my recovery and my health outcomes. And I was going to be proactive. I was going to do everything I could to get back on my feet and get the best health that I could. I just decided that, realizing that actually I should be grateful for everything that I had in the past. I'd never once been grateful for walking until I lost it. And then I realised I hadn't been grateful enough to the people who were now helping me. And the simple fact I was born and brought up in the UK, I had free healthcare, free education, freedom to set up a business, never homeless, never hungry. Like, why should I sit there and feel sorry for myself? And that's what happened. I kind of flipped that switch and just realised I'm going to go for this. I'm all in on recovery. And that meant that after 11 months, I walked a mile without any aids. And then I was like, you know what? What else can I achieve, man? I can push this potential further, surely.
That's awesome, man. I just can only imagine to be able to flip that switch. And obviously Lee is into mindset and, life coaching plus more. But I want to go back to this, okay? Because you brought up having your own video game business, okay? So, and you just sold that. That was called Phenom Games.
Yeah.
You recently sold it. So I don't want to talk about the ups and downs with that. So obviously that was something that you didn't really have a lot of downs with. It was more like you got in at the right time and it was like, boom. And, everything was going well. And then 2014 hit and you still had that business?
Yeah, so, what kind of happened is I was on that e-commerce boom. So from an entrepreneurial perspective, I was quite switched on and I was agile and dynamic because it was a small company. I was reaching 7 figures and it was me and a bunch of automations back then. And in so many ways, I was pushing that needle. And I look back and I made loads of mistakes when I reflect on it. And yet that paid for me not only to, have the lifestyle that I had, that also allowed me to work that business while I was recovering. So that's another thing I was incredibly grateful for. If I had had a physical job, I'd have had no income. How much would have that affected my financial well-being when I was trying to recover? And just before I became unwell, I pivoted the company into wholesale, moving down the supply chain. So I started to see that the e-commerce side, it was starting to morph and evolve away from what I was offering. And that digital download and other elements were coming in that were taking elements of, we're going to take elements of revenue from me in the long term. So I moved down the supply chain and started to leverage my own network and connections to deal in bigger volumes, which then still gave me the revenue with considerably less work. And that was a vital move that then allowed me to run that business from a hospital bed with one hand.
That's crazy. And it's when, as I'm talking to you now, fam, listen, I just actually, this is the first time I've ever talked to Lee. Okay. I've been blessed to meet a lot of amazing people. And I love doing this because usually, sometimes I talk to people that I've known for a while, but the last 4 guests I've talked to, this is the first time I get to talk to them. So it's like I'm shaking Lee's hand right now and I get to hear his story like this. And to me, it seems like you are a very critical thinker as far as what to do when it comes to business. Like, do you go by feeling or by, like you said, you like data and stuff? When you made that switch over in your business, because here's the thing, a lot of people that are going to be listening to this are into entrepreneurship. A lot of people are trying to start their own business. What was it was it the numbers that you noticed something was amok, or did you stay on top of things as far as like news, trends? What was it that caused you to flip the switch to go to distribution?
Yeah, so in so many ways, I've always been into following the patterns, and that's like probably my superpower if I had one. And I kind of saw the trends, and it's the kind of business, it moves so quickly. If you're not agile and dynamic, you get left behind. So I was always 6 months in front, predicting what was going to happen, looking at previous data and understanding and, building algorithms. So I had that kind of, that processing. And yet what I've come to realize looking back is a lot of those decisions were made on gut feeling based on data presented a certain way. And I was always on my toes, because then again in 2016, when Brexit hit, I stepped back and thought, right, what's going to potentially happen here? Tariffs, currencies are all over the place. And in a month, I switched my operations from the whole of Europe and cut out my UK operations and operated solely from Europe. And that, again, was a decision that I took pretty quickly. And did the tariffs and currency issues come as I predicted? No, they didn't. But I probably wouldn't have been able to sell the business in the way that I have if I hadn't have made that move at that time. And I suppose in business, a lot of things happen for a reason. When things don't go the way that you want, it's amazing data to tell you, firstly, what didn't go well. Secondly, a little bit of what you might want to do in the future. And thirdly, a little bit of treasure, a proper nugget of gold that you can utilize going forward on your next venture or your next pivot. But you've got to kind of step back and realize it's not you who's failed. It's just the process that's failed. And that's having that mindset where you actually see what's coming and don't see it as a threat and put your shield up, but you see it as a challenge for you to step up and be more as a person and more as an entrepreneur. Step up into that challenge, step through that door of fear and utilize your intuition to shape and make moves that shake up that status quo a bit, because it's the disruptors out here, the people that look at things in more than one dimension, that are being successful in such a dynamic and agile world that we live in.
That's crazy, because one of my questions to you was going to be regarding fear and how, being in this industry since 2012, I've seen a lot of people come and go.
Oh, yeah.
And it's crazy because a lot of it's due to fear and due to fear of failure. And I like how you said, go ahead and attack it instead of, shielding yourself back. And don't get me wrong. I've talked about this in the past. I've had to overcome fears, and it's crazy because it can paralyze you. It can just keep you in your tracks and you can't do anything. And it's an amazing thing when you do overcome fear. So you obviously have the mindset of just conquering fear and going forward. And like a lot of people say, fail forward. You're not really failing. The only way you fail is if you quit. You're going to maybe make bad decisions here and there, but as long as you learn from your decisions, that's when it becomes key. Correct?
Oh, yeah. So many ways.
In your eyes.
Entrepreneurialism is business experimentation. You go out there and you try. In fact, you fail if you don't try. And that sounds ludicrous because people are like, well, what if it goes wrong? Like, life goes wrong. Literally, entrepreneurialism is like the seasons. Summer is great, and your revenue, your turnover's up, everything's going right. Winter is going to come. It's the businessman who realised that I'm gonna work hard in summer because it's good now, but I'm gonna work hard and realise that when fall comes, it's gonna get bad at some point. But hell, I've been doing this. I'm still doing this. I'm still learning. Treat it like a beginner. Treat it like a science experiment at school. Put your lab coat on. That's what you're doing every day, because the world doesn't stop, and therefore you as an entrepreneur, you can't stop. You're never truly a success. As soon as you think you're a success, you stop and look at everyone around you moving forward. And again, in a world where so many people jumping on the latest trend, whoa, yeah, someone's making millions of pounds doing that, I'm going to go and do that. Their attention's like bandied about. Entrepreneurs, most of them have been doing what they've been doing for so long, that's where you accrue the value over time to continue doing it in the face of adversity, in the face of challenge, pivoting and shaping what you bring into market. And yeah, when you first start, get a minimum viable product out there and then evolve it, churn it, take the data, take the feedback, build it what it needs to become. But don't stand there and expect to deliver perfect first time, which is another reason why so many people don't start, because you literally stood there like an archer, like ready, not ready, Don't expect it to be perfect. Just fire and then make it work from there.
I have somebody that this conversation would be perfect for, so I'm excited to share it with them. So yes, I completely agree with you. And you made a good statement as, people, one of their biggest questions is, well, what if it goes wrong? Well, one of my biggest responses to that is, what if it goes right? You have to, just like you said, you got to shoot. So let's go back to you overcoming your 5 days. I can only imagine it was more than 5 days, obviously, but the 5 days and then you being in the hospital bed, was there an epiphany at that point in time? Obviously, you were grateful that you were okay after all was said and done. What did you feel after that happened? Was there something that turned another light switch on?
Yeah, so I'd gone into hospital, and that initial shock hit me as the realization of what had happened, but not really understanding what had happened. And then all of a sudden came all the pain relief drugs that floated me off onto another planet initially. And after that kind of faded away, I knew I had to let the negative emotion come. If I suppressed it, it'd come back and it'd bite me at some point in the future. So at first I was frustrated and I was angry. I was like, I'm young, I'm healthy, I've looked after myself. This ain't fair. Why me? Why now? And I let that come. I just let it happen. I spoke to people and said, I got it out. I need to get it out. And then that kind of passed. And then I got the grief. So I was like, I'm physical. I'm athletic. I've got kids. And I don't know what's going to happen. Am I going to be walking again? And, we all have that doubt. We all have that negative emotion. There's a reason why we have that whole range of emotions, from blazing joy to desperate despair. It's so we can live a human experience. You've got to feel those things and let them come. And yet, in the second week after that grief has started to subside, I lay there in the hospital bed and thought, you know what, you're going to have a word with yourself. There's a point where you're going to have to think, what's my future like? I need to grab it. And I thought that to myself and I fell asleep. I woke up, and the actual turning point was when it popped into my head, the simple question, have you ever been grateful for being able to walk? That's what switched me on, because then that made me think, I've not been grateful at all for so many things. And I was on a ward there with 3 elderly gentlemen, and they said, you know what, you're young. You've got a lot of life to live. Just go out there and do it. Don't let boundaries and limits hold you back. And that, plus the gratitude, that just made me think, right, I'm going to have to choose to move forward. And it's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. But what will be more painful is resisting the suffering, and that will be pain for life. I'm just going to go for this bit of physical pain now, but I'm going to push forward. My head is moving forward, even if my legs aren't. And that really just anchored me in. That was the switch, just knowing that I was going to move and make progress. And I almost felt like I was like a human being, like wobbling. And I thought, you know what? As long as I can control this wobble, I'll be moving. I don't want to stand still, because standing still means that you're not moving forward, you're not evolving, you're not growing. You may as well be dead.
Yeah. I love your attitude. So now, right now, at this point in time, you're a life coach, well-being trainer. Like, for instance, can people have the opportunity to work with you? How do they get to work with you?
So, yeah, I only have a limited number of clients, and that's so I can give people a full 360-degree experience. If you want to be one of my clients, you can visit my website. That'll be in the show notes, or you can reach out to me on social media. Freddy will put that in there as well. And I will be able to advise you exactly what I can offer you, and you can advise me what you want me to explore.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was going to bring this up. So he's also going to be giving away a free ebook. So in the show notes, winwithfred.com, go there. In the show notes, you're going to be able to get the Living Authentically 80 Ways to Find Your Purpose. You can take advantage of that. That's going to be in the show notes. Plus, everything else that he has to offer is going to be in the show notes, the way you can contact him. So definitely you want to look at the show notes. So, Lee, what do you feel your biggest strength when it comes to helping people is? Because I know that you talk about purpose sometimes.
Yeah, so a lot of it is, the truth is, all the answers are inside of you already. So there's no magic that I'm bringing in terms of answers. You have the answers. I just ask the powerful questions that help you unlock yourself. They help you chisel that purpose. They help you find what your values are deep down beyond where you are. But the biggest thing that I can offer you is the permission to go out there and fail. Go out there and try new things. Go and experience things and start to break down those beliefs, limits and habits that are holding you back from reaching your potential. You don't know what your potential is until you start chasing it. So many of us go through the world and we take what society says, what our own mind says to us. None of that's true. You can do amazing things and you have everything you need inside of you. I'm just like a big key that unlocks it for you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I know you talk about having a resilient mindset. I think I get what that means. Basically, the mindset of continually moving forward, conquering or attacking anything that you feel is coming against you, and pivoting to where if you see something going on in a bad situation, you pivot to the better situation, correct?
Yeah, and in so many ways, life throws punches at you all the time. You've just got to be ready to wobble for every punch that you take, but know that you can continue walking forward. Never stop. And just keep learning, keep evolving, keep changing, keep trying. Just life is a massive experiment. As soon as you stop experimenting, you stop. Stop living.
Yeah, so true. So true. Now, quick question. 2014, you had your issue where you couldn't walk. Is everything okay now?
So I can't really run particularly well, but I can walk for miles now, and that's massive. And the biggest thing is I was on medication that stopped my immune system, and I've managed to come off that by optimizing my sleep, my nutrition, and my movement. And it's taken me 6 years to do that. But last month, I finally had my last dose of medication, and that's it now. I'm living without taking medication and controlling this disease with lifestyle alone.
That's fantastic. So I was going to actually bring this up. I know you talk about sleep, nutrition. I actually just got a nutritionist, and he's been helping me out a lot. I feel better. So you talk about sleep, nutrition. And so what type of morning routine do you on a daily basis, and that sets the stage for an awesome day that you think it's like, for instance, sleep and nutrition? What are some of your secrets?
Yeah, so my morning routine is I wake up at 6 a.m., I wash my face, drink a glass of water, and then I spend 30 minutes before my children wake up spending some time to reflect on myself. So no phone, I'm not into email, news or social media. That's other people's worlds, other people's agendas. I don't need that first thing in the morning. I need to be in my world. So I'll spend some time to either meditate, reflect, bit of silence, maybe even some prayer, or just really looking deep into me, what am I here to do? I know what I'm here to do. I have a little Ikigai card by the side of my bed. Read that every morning. You know why you're starting your day. That gives you power by itself. And then I'll do a bit of exercise. I'll listen to a little bit of a podcast. This would be a great one. Split it up, 6-7 minutes every day for a week. Get an insight from each period. Freddy comes out with all sorts of amazing stuff. So utilize that. Listen to it. Positivity straight away. Read a page of a book. Journal your thoughts. Get your mind onto some paper. walk around the block, get some sunlight in your eyes. And that's how I start my mornings. And all of a sudden, you're on fire before you've even gone and done any work, before you've even gone and give your kids breakfast like I do. Then I spend that time with my kids. I really enjoy it. I'm connected. I'm suddenly a lot more patient than I would have been if I'd have just woken up and they'd have been jumping on me. And it's like, then drop my kids off at school and boom, I'm into work. I'm on fire every single day because not only am I really purposeful and I'm on a mission to impact the health, well-being of millions of people before I go to the other plane, but I've actually set it up. So I'm ready and I'm moving. I've got the momentum from that first minute that I wake up and I'm there. And I'd suggest everyone to do something similar. Everyone has the ability to have a bit of time either at the start of the day or the end of the day. Most people in the middle, you're working, you don't have as much control. But start to build those routines in and start to look at the tiny, small things that you can do. Like, don't try and meditate for 2 hours. Start with a few minutes. Gradually build it up. They compound so quickly when you do lots of little things that are positive. Think of an upward spiral. That's what happens when you start to do these little things. And you don't see anything amazing straight away at the start because they're only small. Give it a year and you'll feel like a different person.
I think that's what a lot of people struggle with is that instant gratification, that I want everything now. And then they're okay with going back to where they were beforehand. And a lot of it's like, for instance, nutrition. It's, I know friends that were trying to lose weight and I've been through this too, where, you eat a couple Oreo cookies and you're like, oh man, I'm just going to beat myself up. I'm going to eat the whole package. And before you know it, you're eating sugar and Oreo cookies, for the rest of the week, and you completely forget about why you started. I think that if people were to remind themselves and take the time to reflect, remind themselves, why are they doing what they're doing? And I like what you said earlier in the conversation that when you were doing, I think you said you flipped the switch on, were you passionate about something? And you were able to make that realization that, okay, I'm not passionate about this. I'm going to flip the switch. What is comfortable? What exactly is comfortable? Because, when I first started doing this, the first year and a half were absolutely horrible. My wife was looking at me like, what are we going to do? She was comfortable with me at my old job because we had a paycheck coming in every week. And I understand that. But comfortable and happy are two different things. Comfortable and finding your purpose are two different things. And I think that you have really shown that with your journey thus far in your life.
Yeah, you can't be comfortable and grow at the same time because it's uncomfortable uncertainty that helps us step into growth.
It's crazy. It's like when I first jumped out of an airplane, I was terrified. And it was the fear of it. But when I got halfway up, it's like I felt a sense of calm. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go and do this. Now, of course, it could have ended badly, but most cases it didn't. It was fine. I had a blast doing it. You got to take chances, And for me, when I jumped off and for instance, when you started your business, you could still right now be at the same company you were at in 2008. But life helped direct you as well because of what happened in 2008.
Yeah, definitely. And it kind of, if you think about that jump, you can either take the jump or life will push you.
And the crazy thing is one of the guys on the plane ended up going down with the plane as far as he didn't jump. And I was like, why wouldn't you jump? But I get it. Some people are just scared, but fear is a lot of times what we're scared of isn't even real. And it's nuts. We think that people are looking at us, funny when they're not looking at us funny. They're looking at us like we're a person. It's just, we got to get out of our own heads, I think. And that's what a lot of times we get into our own heads. And you yourself were able to do that in a lot of different, instances. So I commend you for that. That's awesome. So real quick, let's switch to this day and age.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been transitioning home because working from home, losing their jobs. What can you say to them? I think you've already said it, but let's reiterate the point that, they're facing this pandemic. I don't know how it is in the UK. It's been scary for a lot of people. There's a lot of crazy things happening in this world. What would you say to them as far as how to combat that? And like, for instance, if they have to work at home, I know that I first struggled, when I started working at home, I was all over the place. So, do you have a secret power that you stay focused and getting massive amounts of work done? And what would you say to them as far as, okay, you lost your job or you have to work from home, you got screaming kids in the background, what do you tell them?
Yeah, so I think in so many ways, this is a massive experiment that couldn't happen in any other format. And the first thing is for people to realise there's a lot of other people going through this. It's a shared human experience. And in a normal situation, when people get remote working privileges, it's like a 6 months transition. It's like, here's some training on the technology, and here's half a day to acclimatise, and we're going to do this for you, and we're going to help you with your home working situation, and we're going to buy you a chair. And for most people across the world, they suddenly had to go from office to home in a week with no training and none of that period to adapt and acclimatise. So the first thing is, for those people, you've done amazing given the circumstances. Give yourself a pat on the back and realise that what you've done is something that most companies before this would have said, it's not possible, they can't transfer to remote working in a week. Well, you have. You've proven a point and actually shown that it's definitely possible. The most important thing for all this is COVID has taken away our routines. It's taken away a lot of the things and a lot of the choices that we had, the ability to see who we wanted, go where we wanted. And human beings don't like losing the choice, because we live in a world where there's about 37 different sources to put on our chips. So it's like, suddenly when you can't do anything, it don't feel good. And yet, through this period, people have shown they started looking out for the community. They started speaking to people with intention. They started to look out there and realise there's loads of great things that we can do. We weren't grateful for them before. It's like me. I wasn't grateful for walking, so I lost it. This has come along, and a lot of people are really grateful for those things that they were just doing every day, and now they couldn't do them. And in that situation, really, it's about homeworking and getting used to the fact that you can build a routine yourself. It's actually a really good way to design your own life. And there's absolutely no doubt, suddenly you're in an environment where you're living, you're educating, you're working, you're relaxing, you're sleeping. It's not designed for that. So you've got to try and design it as well as you can. And I could go on about this for at least an hour because it's a big part of my work. But to really boil it down, try to get yourself into a working mindset. Walk around the block, leave home, come back into work, get dressed in something that you feel is work. Try and section off a space to work in. Make sure the people you in your vicinity, you're living with, your family, your housemates, help them and communicate really clear with them so they have the boundaries. They know when not to disturb you. And have that communication clear. Have a schedule. Have a dinner time. Have breaks to disconnect from work so you can reconnect stronger again. And for those people who've been made redundant, it is a challenging time, and yet you're not redundant. You have an opportunity in this crisis to reinvent yourself, to become something more. And I understand that at the moment, your financial well-being, it won't feel great. You'll really be worried about the evictions, about the next paycheck. And yet, if we sit there and put our head in the sand and fall back into our shell, things aren't going to get better. And I know it's hard, but go out there and realise that you've got talents inside you, gifts, probably things you've not even experimented with yet because you've just been in your stable job. But in this world, get out there. There's a lot of things you can use. Get yourself on LinkedIn or Facebook and start messaging about what you can do. Start to access all the free materials to help you develop yourself, and start to think, this isn't bad. Well, yeah, it is bad, but how can you turn bad to good? How can you turn bad to great? How can this be a chance for you to pause and think, actually, what I was doing, I didn't even like that anyway, but maybe now's a chance for me to go and do something that I do like. And you know what? It's not going to be easy, because going out and doing new things, it takes practice at first. And yet this is a perfect time. And I just say to a lot of my clients who are really struggling, I'll say, really, human beings are a bit like a business. So in the economic crash where I lost my job, I was feeling sorry for myself. That same economic crash created Uber and Airbnb, who then went into two massive traditional industries and completely disrupted them and shifted the models of how they worked. In crisis comes innovation, creativity, and people who are willing to smash through that status quo and do something differently. And maybe this is just a chance for you as a human being to go out there and do something differently. While everyone else is hiding, you go, step into it, step up. This is your challenge. All the great presidents of America, they didn't get to be remembered for who they were because of what they did when it was great. They were remembered, they have legacy because when the world turned against them, when the challenge hit, they stepped up. That's what you want. You want a legacy of being someone who makes a change, who changes the world, not in the summer, but in the winter.
I gotta say, mic drop there. That was fantastic. That was fantastic. So, guys, Lee Chambers, all this stuff is going to be on winwithfred.com. I could talk to you for hours, Lee. So I'm going to definitely have you on again because this was fun. But winwithfred.com, look at the show notes. Get his ebook, Living Authentically, 80 Ways to Find Your Purpose. Connect with him on social media. You're a wealth of knowledge. And we're about to go into the hyper fast Q&A round. Have some fun here and ask you some crazy questions. So you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Man, I just... Mic drop. Okay, so here we go. Real quick, before I start this, I gotta say something. You seem to be a big proponent of personal accountability, and I love that. In other words, you kept on saying you, and that, and putting your head in a shell and putting your head in the sand. That's just, it's so true. People, it's crazy because right now, and I brought this up in the past, in America at least, one of the busiest places in our neighborhood is the liquor store. People are going that route to solve their problems. And it goes back to personal accountability. So I really appreciate that. And I think that a lot of people listening to this are going to appreciate that as well. So thank you. Okay, so here we go. Super hyper fast Q&A round. Okay, just some fun questions. If life were a video game, what would some of the cheat codes be? You were in the video game industry, so this.
Well, yeah, definitely invincibility, ability to fly, and get bigger than you are, and bigger than you were yesterday.
Real quick before I go to the next one, do you still play video games ever?
Not too much, to be honest, because it got to a point where I couldn't play all my stock.
Okay, cool. So if you could replace all the grass in the world with something else, what would it be and why?
It's got to be pictures. Pictures tell more than a graph.
Okay. You found a time machine. You took back 600 years. You found a time machine that took you back 600 years. All you have on is a T-shirt and boxers. How do you tell people that you're from the future?
I dance, I sing, and I do the splits.
I think that'd be right, especially 600 years. What artist or band do you always recommend when someone asks you for a music recommendation?
Muse.
The Muse?
Yep.
Okay. So, and then an epic feast is held in your honor. What's on the table?
A hell of a lot of pizza.
Oh, you like pizza? I love pizza. Yeah. And the thing is this: my nutritionist has me lowering on the carbs. So, yeah, sorry is right. It's not fun. So, but you know what? I'm gonna be able to eat my pizza when I get to my goal. So, fantastic. So, one last shout out to the Freddy O fam that you feel can have an instant impact on them right now. One thing of advice.
Yeah. Don't worry about failing. stand next to that door that you fear, open it, step through it. On the other side of that door is everything you want, your potential, your growth, literally, your life is on the other side of that door. Don't just stand there. Go through it. Jump off the edge. Don't be pushed out of the plane. Jump out yourself. Take ownership. Take that jump.
Dang, this was a good interview. Lee Chambers, thank you so much, my friend.
It's been great.
Thank you once again to today's guest, Lee Chambers. Truly inspiring. Also, thank you to you as well for tuning in to today's episode of The Freddy O Show. Also, make sure you head over to winwithfred.com to check out the show notes. All that Lee has to offer, it'll be well worth your time to do that. We are coming to the finish line of episode number 9. This is Freddy O, and until next time, fam, keep pushing forward and always stay hungry.